Hi everybody, Cindy.
I'm Gary.
We're Pathways Homestead. Welcome to our channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that bell button so that you get notified every time we have a video. So today, we are out standing in our field, petting our cows.
I'm playing Disney Princess today.
So this is Frosty. If you've seen any of our previous videos, especially early spring videos, Frosty is our bottle calf, one of our bottle calves. He is no longer on a bottle. He's out here in the pasture. But he is by far our gentlest calf, next to Freedom that you can see way back in the background, our milk cow. Her calf, Freeman, is pretty gentle as well. He's not quite as gentle as Frosty, except he's halter broke and Frosty's not. But Frosty could easily be halter broke. So our neighbor came and seeded some winter pasture for us out here in our big pasture. And it's a bright, sunny fall day. So we have not turned the camera where you can see most of the pasture because the sun's in the wrong position. But we've been checking out to see if anything's sprouting and keeping an eye on it. We need a good rain and things would really pop, I think.
Yeah, well, today we're gonna look at the ground and look at the grass, basically. Not the grass, but the pasture crops here, and talk about that a little bit. Talk about struggles that have been going on, and so we're gonna kind of give you guys some info on that and how we're managing our property.
So we have around 9 acres of pasture for these calves. We have 7 calves in this pasture. Freedom's on another acre and a half of pasture out on the other side. That's really our yard, part of our yard. What we would consider the barnyard, even though we don't have a barn. Or phase 1, as a lot of people would call it in permaculture. It's area 1, phase 1. So the big black calf is Gertrude. She was our bottle calf last fall. Then this red calf here, she belongs to Stewart Farms. And she's out here to help us manage our grass. There's a lot in pasture management that needs to be considered. And part of that is the correct number of animals for the correct amount of grazing.
Yeah, and there are times that you want to graze harder and times you want to graze lighter, and so that's kind of a number management thing. We've learned a lot over the years of managing, and there's a lot of things we know, but we haven't figured out how to put in practice with our time constraints and our budget constraints. But we're kind of trying a lot of things here and kind of getting some new ideas, but we'll kind of it's just kind of a guessing by golly sometimes, but sometimes we put a lot of study into it too. One of the things, this property was a soybean field when we bought it, and it wasn't a top quality soybean field. It just produced about 40 bushel an acre, which is
poor ground.
Pretty poor ground. Enough to make it worth farming, but just barely. And so they were willing to sell it to us, and we bought it. And we didn't have farm equipment, and we knew that it wasn't in our program. It wouldn't fit in our program to try to continue to harvest it as a bean field. So we planted some wheat on it for a couple of years that we basically turned back in on the ground, and we just kind of mowed it back down, and it reseeded itself a few times, and that's kind of was our management strategy to begin with. And then we seeded between the first and second year of wheat, we seeded a pasture mix here that had fescue, and it had Korean Lespedeza, which is a forb and a legume. It's a legume, right? And we had a little clover and some other things.
Somebody laid an egg.
What has produced the best in this ground is the Korean Lespedeza. So that's kind of our base or our staple of our grazing here. It is a warm season. It does better in the summer with plenty of rain. It's a high nutrient forb, and it provides a lot of nutrients to the cattle when it's grazing. Another thing that I have discovered about Korean is that what kills in the frost is it still has a lot of feed value standing dead, and the cattle, it has a lot of palatability, so the cattle still like to eat it if it's standing dead. In fact, they will pick it over other things standing dead. They'll even pick it over live fescue. They'll pick standing dead Korean over live fescue. So that's kind of a benefit. If we were to say in July or August, early August, if we were to pull everything off of here and let it stand till frost, and then we could use it as a winter ground for that, they get a month or two of grazing out of it probably, and high nutrient grazing. If this Korean is growing well and there's enough of it, it will put weight gains on that are higher than like a corn-based feed yield. It puts a lot of weight gain on cattle. We would prefer to have a blue stem pasture here, but that's not what this is, and it's not.
There is some blue stem spotty reclaiming,
Yeah.
As soon as you start to reclaim the ground and stop fighting to keep it bare except for your monocrop. As soon as you start diversifying and allowing grasses to come back, they will come back. It just takes a lot of time. So we're looking at ground that we've been working on. We are on our 5th year.
5th year.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we're on our 5th year.
So I'm going to have Cindy man the camera, and we're going to show you some of these grasses close up and kind of what we're looking at. One of the things we're looking at right now is for how our sowed-in cover crop. We had some cool season grasses, some brassicas like turnips and rabe, and I don't remember, there might have been another one in there. We had some of those in the mix. We had some clovers, and there may have even been more Korean in the mix, I can't remember. But there was forbs and brassicas, tubers, and cool season grasses like rye and oats planted in this mix. We're looking for that right now. We're not seeing it come up, and we know that in our area a lot of this that has been planted has been annihilated by the armyworms and the grasshoppers, and I don't know if that's what's happened here yet. I haven't definitely seen grasshoppers, but
not to the extent.
Yeah, so
yeah,
we're kind of inspecting that today, but we'll show you kind of what we got going on the grasses here. Okay, this bunch right here is our fescue. It's a tall type pasture fescue, and it tends to bunch when it's not real thick, and we planted it, but it didn't come up real good the first year, so it kind of, what did come up is reseeding, and that's what we're seeing. This is when you can tell the cattle really like this, and they eat it good, and it will, fescue will grow in the cooler months. It will eventually stop growing in the cold, but sometimes it will still stay green depending on just how long it stays, how cold. I hope she's just checking me out.
She is.
This is Korean Lespedeza. This is a forb this is a legume, so it helps us fix nitrogen in the soil, atmospheric nitrogen. It pulls it out of the air and helps us fix it in the soil, and it does a lot of good for the ground itself, but also it's a high nutrient grazing crop, and this is what we have planted and tended to, and this is the staple of our grazing system here, and the cattle really eat this good, and you can tell this should be knee high, and the cattle keep it mowed about that height. That's about, I don't know, 4 inches, 5 inches, and they keep it mowed off because they like it, but it is still pretty thick. The struggle, what we don't like here, this is what we see. There is too much bare ground, and we need more ground cover, so that's why we have replanted a cover crop, and we're trying to get this ground completely covered. And when it's covered, remember we started with an old soybean field, bare ground, nothing here that would regrow itself. So we started with that. I'm going to have Cindy get over here if she can. That is all I see of our cover crop right now. We're going to continue to look, but that is our cool season grass, and it is up, and you can tell that it is not been nipped off. So maybe we just need a little more time and
we need more moisture.
So we'll just see what we look when we look at some low spots. We are kind of on a terrace. This ground was terraced at one time, and so we're on a little bit of a high spot. We'll look in some low spots in a little bit and see what we see. But again, you see all our bare ground that we're trying to get covered, and you don't want bare ground. You see how it cracks. It just there's too many nutrients can escape from bare ground. You need it to be covered. So that's what we're working at, but we're also trying to profit off of it at the same time. So we graze it pretty hard at times too, and we feel like the manure load does the ground a lot of good.
So explain the tracks that you can see in my camera.
Oh, so these tracks here, when you can see that this piece of grass is in that track, that is the drill that they used a no-till drill. Our neighbor did. He used a no-till drill to drill in the seed, and it just cuts a little spot with the disc and drops the seed right behind it, and there will be several. It's about 10 feet wide, and it's got there every 6 inches or so, and it drills it into the ground. So it's covered by about a ½ inch of dirt, and that helps all the seed germinate well. And so that's what the tracks you're seeing.
Let's see if I can get you a video of our company here. Oh, that's too bright. Too much sun.
Y'all, we're down at the kind of just up against a terrace, in a low spot where it'll hold more moisture. And we can see that right here in this cut of the drill, there's a brassica, there's some of the legumes, there's our cool season grasses. The cool season grasses have definitely been nipped off right here. There's several right here, and they have been nipped. But the brassicas in our mix, one of the things they do, they pull up nutrients. They're mineral miners. They got long roots that go down in and pull up nutrients from deep in the soil. And so they're mineral miners basically, and they also, their big root systems and their deep roots, like the turnips and the radishes and the rape, and which is similar to, it's canola is what it is, but it's similar to like a kale.
Mustard.
It will, huh?
It's a mustard.
Yeah, it's a mustard. Okay. It brings, it loosens the soil, and then when it dies, there's nutrients there, and it's leaving airspace. So
Gertrude was smelling your boot. The real life struggles of YouTubers. Cattle smelling your bottom and your boots while you're trying to film.
The legumes affix nitrogen. I'm thinking that might be Korean actually right there. It fixes nitrogen with its root system, so that puts nutrients in the soil. The winter grasses, they'll grow all winter, or most of the winter, and they'll provide some nutrients back into the soil, but they provide feed for the cattle, and the cattle will then poop out nutrients. And if Cindy can swing right over there, you can see Frosty heavily grazing the Korean, and he's going to stop. See how he's picking the Korean and the fescue over the weeds around him. There's ragweed there that he's just not touching, and he's really going to town on that Korean Lespedeza. The foxtail he's leaving.
Oh, you moved. I was going to get Gertrude smelling your boot.
All right.
We're down here on the ground, and our cattle all around us.
All right, we've got little blue and gamma grass coming up in here, which are our prairie grasses, and they are coming up voluntarily. Basically, I did not plant them, but they are all around, and we knew they would encroach. And we've got a little patch here. You can see that the Korean's a little taller here too. And these grasses are doing good. This is a benefit. These are beneficial. They are a good grazing pasture grass. Pasture management is very important. When you are a livestock farmer, when you're raising sheep, when you're raising cattle, you are also a grass farmer. That's what produces your product. That's what produces beef and lamb. So we take this pretty serious as far as pasture management, and you should too. Whether you've got an acre that you're grazing, or a half acre that you're grazing pastured poultry on, or an acre or two you've got some lambs or a milk cow on, or whether you're managing several mile sections like I assist with sometimes. Pasture management's important, and you need to pay attention to what's growing under your feet.
Thanks for coming along with us today as we inspect our pasture.
And we're making, as we look at getting the information to make decisions on management. And I hope you guys, maybe it'll make you look at your grass a little different, and as a crop that you're growing instead of something you gotta mow. And hope you all enjoyed this, and remember that God made you special
and He loves you very much. God bless y'all. Pray you have a blessed week.